Watch this.
So fiscal responsibility is not something we talk about when it's easy.
And right now, Idaho's fiscal situation is kind of a touchy subject. Just before the start of the 2026 legislative session, the leader of the Senate told lawmakers it's up to them to fix the problem they created.
Even if they reinstate the tax credits, or if they are still on the table for us in 2026, it's going to be hard. But if they don't reinstate them, then we simply won't be able to afford any health care at all.
Less than 2 weeks left to lock in health insurance for next year, and thousands of Idahoans are discovering some very expensive surprises. We'll show you one couple's insurance premiums who went from manageable to unaffordable.
Last year's budgeting session, we acted more like Washington, D.C. than we did Idaho. Well, Lieutenant Governor, what do you mean? I'll tell you exactly what we mean. We created a list of things that we wanted to accomplish and passed that list of things before we set the revenue number. And then we backed into the list with the revenue number and adjusted the revenue number so that it would pay for the list of things.
Lieutenant Governor Scott Bedke didn't pull too many punches yesterday at the Associated Taxpayers of Idaho annual conference in downtown Boise. ATI is a nonpartisan, nonprofit watchdog of Idaho's tax dollars, focused on effective and responsible government, they say. However, after last session and the current budget deficit Idaho is facing, nearly $59 million for this fiscal year, more than $555 million for fiscal year 2027, that responsible part is being called into question, especially since it's a constitutional requirement. It only took a month into the current fiscal year to see the gap between revenue and spending, well, it was growing. The budget holdbacks directed by Governor Brad Little seem to cover the short term, but darker days are still ahead, according to the Lieutenant Governor. And like he has for the last several years, Bedke was asked to give opening remarks at the ATI. And for those in the room or those who just watched on the feed, you could see he was going off script and speaking from the heart about the difficult situation the state is facing when it comes to funding. Well, today we wanted to know why Lieutenant Governor decided to say something now.
This is where all of the finger pointing will start. This is where all the denying will start. This is where all the gaslighting will start. And none of that will serve us well as we go forward. I mean, I have given opening remarks at the ATI for a few years now. And I couldn't in good conscience get up and do everything's, all is well thing, because it's not well, because we didn't do it like we normally do it. So we always say, well, we got to run government more like a business. I mean, every one of you that are in public office will say that in the next election cycle. What does that mean? That means that you can't do it like you did last year. You've got to come up with a revenue number that is realistic and give yourself some wiggle room and then set your budget. You can't do it the other way around. Idaho has always prided itself in living within the taxpayers' means, and we never get fancy when it comes to setting a budget. We agree on what we think we're going to get revenue-wise for the next year, and then we always discount that a little bit because there's so much uncertainty in the system. And that's how we've done it every year except for last year.
So that leads to the question, why didn't anybody say anything last year?
Well, a comedy of errors, I don't know. Never attribute to maliciousness that which can be explained by mere, probably need a better word than stupidity. But anyway, I don't know. It wasn't right, and it wasn't healthy for Idaho to do it that way. Not only did we do all of the list of the things that we wanted to do, mostly tax cuts, but we also passed $5 billion worth of budgets before we set the revenue number too.
Now, Representative Horman pushed back on that yesterday. She said that's not the way it happened.
And we did try and set the revenue number early in session, as we always do. and as we will do again this year. However, we could not get a majority of the committee. And so it was later, but we never set any budgets that were in excess of what we knew our revenue was.
In effect, that's exactly what's happened. The players can color it any way they want to do, but they created the list before they had the number. That is getting the cart way out ahead of the horse, and we've always done it better.
Was anybody saying this during the session last year?
Yeah, we were saying it, and we just went along. And we cannot go along again. And that's why I was candid at the ATI thing. And I understand well that nobody likes a smart aleck lieutenant governor. But this is not my first rodeo, and we know better than what we did last year.
We talked about this during last session, the amount of tax rebates, the $450 million that Governor Little eventually signed. Should we have not signed that or given those $450 million in tax rebates?
It seemed like a good idea at the time, but it's turned out to not be a good idea. And we don't have to walk away from them. All we need to do is stagger their effective date. Don't get me wrong here at all. I'm not a big government guy. But I am a prudent, if you're going to take my tax money, I want you to be very careful with it, and I want you to prudently use it. I don't get to vote anymore.
Right.
And I'm not directing a lot of traffic anymore. But I do have a voice, and I do have experience here, and I can't just not say anything.
Lieutenant Governor Bedke also mentioned the $167 million in tax cuts coming from President Donald Trump's big, beautiful tax and spending bill still have not been accounted for in Idaho, like corporate tax breaks, taxes on overtime and tips, property taxes, those kind of things. Idaho can't afford to say no to those, Bedke said. And to be clear, Governor Little only recommended about $100 million in tax cuts during last legislative session, but the legislature went and handed him a veto-proof cuts of $450 million. So as Lieutenant Governor Bedke put it to us, this is squarely on the lawmakers. And while there is talk of dipping into the state's $1.4 billion rainy day fund, Bedke was quick to point out it's neither raining nor is Idaho in a recession right now. The state's economy is still growing, which is why he felt something needed to be said before the first day of the legislative session, where balancing the budget will be the primary focus. Meanwhile, deadline is approaching for Idahoans trying to buy 2026 health insurance on the state exchange. Idaho has the earliest open enrollment period in the country. Starts on October 15th and only goes to December 15th. Beyond that, unless you have a major life event, insurance marketplaces, well, they'll close until next year. The cycle has been stressful for Idahoans that use that exchange. Many are seeing prices go up way beyond what they paid in recent years. The enhanced tax credits from the Affordable Care Act are set to expire at the end of the year. Of course, that's unless Congress does something about that. But something at this point seems rather unlikely. Joe Paris spoke with Idaho Health Exchange about the looming changes and what Idahoans can do about it.
Less than 2 weeks for Idahoans to enroll in health insurance for 2026 on the State Health Exchange, a looming task for families figuring out finances.
Your Health Idaho is Idaho's health insurance marketplace. It's the only place where you can apply for and receive a tax credit, can lower the cost of your monthly premiums.
Pat Kelly is the executive director of Your Health Idaho. The exchange more than 135,000 Idahoans use to get insurance.
Someone who does not have affordable employer-sponsored coverage or another federal program that they're eligible for. So think about Medicaid or Medicare or TRICARE for veterans. So if you're not eligible for one of those programs, you might be eligible for a tax credit and enroll with Your Health Idaho.
With the expiration of enhanced tax credits in the Affordable Care Act, the cost of insurance can be dramatically different.
We've seen people who have five-figure increases, think $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 a year, and others that maybe see an increase of $50 a month. Most people are surprised by the increases, to be honest.
My name's Bob McMichael. I am a retired school teacher and professor, and I live in a rural town called Council.
We spoke with Bob a few weeks back, and he is one of thousands of Idahoans who saw what can be described as scary change.
If the tax credits do get taken away, the annual cost of the plan that we are on will be almost $27,000.
Bob says he and his wife fall into the category of senior citizens on fixed income, something he thought he would never say. a couple in a tough spot.
Our increase in our premium is going to be almost 800%, even if they reinstate the tax credits, or if they are still on the table for us in 2026. It's going to be hard, but if they don't reinstate them, then we simply won't be able to afford any health care at all.
They aren't alone. It's leading to tough decisions.
And what we're seeing is a lot of people changing plans this year so that they can find one that really works best for their budget and, of course, their medical needs.
But those going through Your Health Idaho do have access to free help.
We also have over 1,000 agents and brokers all across the state, free to use, and they're experts in health insurance. Licensed by the state of Idaho, certified by Your Health Idaho, and again, experts in your community, no cost to use.
Those experts can help clarify a confusing conversation, like if all tax credits are just going away for health insurance.
People call and say, oh my gosh, all of the tax credits are going away. And that's just not true. The tax credits that are expiring at the end of 2025 are the enhanced tax credits only. The tax credits that can reduce the cost of your monthly premium are still available and will continue to be so in 2026 and beyond.
What advice would you have to Idahoans that are just hoping that something changes with the enhanced tax credits?
Well, I hope something changes as well, and my advice would be really two things. Make a decision now based on the information that we have in our system and in your account. Really important to have coverage for 2026. If the enhanced tax credits are extended or Congress acts in another way, we will make sure that Idahoans have every opportunity to take advantage of every bit of savings they're eligible for.
And Your Health Idaho also wants communities across the state to know that they have pop-up events until December 15th. Brian, you can go to Your Health Idaho's website, and they have a schedule of events in different communities. Okay. We know that sometimes there's a barrier of getting on the phone, trying to connect with someone and get it going, even if it's free. There will be people in communities that you can talk to one-on-one. Okay. And it's not manipulating, but they know how to work through the system to help families save money and not just get affordable health insurance, but insurance that'll be meaningful for their family's needs.
Mr. Kelly answered my question that I had at the end of that story there, saying that if they do change, if Congress does make the adjustments, then he'll make sure that Idahoans are able to access that.
Absolutely.
But have we heard from our lawmakers, our delegation to Congress, are they planning on doing this, or what is their stance on when it comes to these changes, if possible?
We've seen that our delegation has celebrated the fiscal cuts and the health care cuts in the One Big Beautiful Bill. We have talked with them about affordable health care. My last conversation with Representative Russ Fulcher says he wants to make health care more affordable, and he actually introduced today a piece of legislation in Congress for short-term insurance. But the conversation is not concrete across all of Congress right now. We know that Speaker Mike Johnson in the United States House, he wants to have a vote possibly on this. Sure. But it's not scheduled, and it takes time to get things done. So we will see.
All right, we will see. Thanks, Joe. I would love this part of the 208. Viewer question time. Earlier this week, in Monday's edition of the 411, we mentioned how some Idaho ski resorts had to postpone their openings because of the warm, dry November. But Bogus Basin was able to open first this past weekend, Thanksgiving weekend, because of some snow they were able to save from last ski season. And that prompted this question from Bill and Allie in Boise. Can you explain how ski resorts preserve snow through our 100-degree-plus summer heat? Well, that's a good question. And we had that same question ourselves here in the newsroom. First, Bogus was the only ski mountain to do this in Idaho, but not just in Idaho, in the entire United States, using technology imported from Finland. And they call it Snow Secure, a Finnish invention that keeps snow from turning to, well, water, which it usually does during the summer. Here's how it works. Last spring, Bogus piled up about, 300 feet of snow. That'd be 80 feet wide, 30 feet deep. They put it all on their bunny hill, and then they covered it with these insulation mats that you're seeing there. And when it was uncovered last October, just in October, most of it was still frozen, which is pretty good. Bogus says storing snow from one season to the next helps reduce the water and electricity they need to make the snow, cutting their usage by about 70%. So, Bill and Allie in Boise, the same stuff, your disposable cooler or your styrofoam cup, is how Bogus was able to open the bunny hill by Thanksgiving weekend. Idaho lawmakers will soon be asked to make improvements to Idaho's prison system after an investigation into rape and abuse inside Idaho's women's prisons found, it was viable. Meanwhile, the sister of a man beaten to death inside another Idaho prison is suing the Idaho Department of Correction. Here's Hunter Funk with today's 411.
The Idaho Board of Correction is trying to clean up the fallout from an investigation that revealed rape and abuse inside Idaho's women's prisons. It centers on a woman who said 5 prison employees sexually abused her while she was incarcerated. She had the messages and emails to prove it, but no one believed her. Until now. The Department of Correction reopened her case and found enough evidence to back up allegations against one employee, who's no longer with the department. Her fight pushed 7 more women to come forward, leading investigators to uncover years of unchecked mistreatment. Now the board says it's tightening background checks, is fixing the way complaints are handled, and preparing to ask lawmakers to strengthen Idaho's prison sexual assault statute. The family of a man beaten to death inside an Idaho prison is now taking the Department of Correction to federal court. Milo Warnock was killed by his cellmate back in December of 2023 at the Idaho State Correctional Center. Now, his sister has filed a civil rights and wrongful death lawsuit. She argues prison officials ignored clear warning signs, even after both inmates reportedly told staff their cell wasn't safe. Warnock was a non-violent DUI inmate with bipolar disorder and was housed with a man who had a violent history and later received a life sentence for the murder. The family claims required safety checks did not happen the way they should have, and officers didn't step in until it was too late. They want this case to go to trial, and they want IDOC held accountable. The Ada County Sheriff's Office is advising anyone who uses their Code Red password for any personal accounts to change it immediately. The Sheriff's Office says Code Red's operator Crisis 24 experienced a data breach. Information connected to Ada County's Code Red accounts were compromised, and this includes names, addresses, email addresses, phone numbers, and passwords that were used when creating Code Red profiles. If you use your Code Red password for other accounts, the Sheriff's Office says you should update those passwords. And that's the 411 on the 208. I'm Hunter Funk.
Here's a live look via satellite and radar at all the active weather that is happening right now. Snow is widespread in the west central mountains. Rain taking up most of the upper Treasure Valley and Boise right now, but portions of the lower Treasure Valley seeing a few snow flurries right now, as well as Elmore County starting to see some of that snow drop to the lower elevations there as well. Snow could potentially become more widespread in the next hour or so and is possible throughout about 9-10 p.m. tonight. But visibility is already being reduced, especially in the west central mountains where visibility is down to about a mile, about 50% visibility in the lower Treasure Valley and east central Oregon right now. Full visibility would be considered 10 miles. So you can see there are multiple cities throughout the Treasure Valley that don't have that full visibility right now. If we play this futurecast forward in the next hour or so, you can see how the snow levels drop through the Treasure Valley floor. Boise could start to see some of those flurries fall. The pink color is showing a wintry mix possible of rain and snow over the next couple hours. There could be a brief break in precipitation just before midnight, but then before tomorrow morning on your commutes to work, that rain picks up in the Treasure Valley. Widespread once again, widespread snow throughout the mountains, so your commutes may be a little dicey tomorrow morning. We're looking at the possibility of freezing rain overnight tonight. That rain will be heavy again tomorrow afternoon just before the BSU game. Widespread showers, Boise included, so if you're headed out to the Blue, you're going to need some water resistant gear to wear to the game because that rain could be coming down pretty hard from time to time. But by Friday evening, things seem to taper off just a little bit for the Treasure Valley. That precipitation shifts down to south central Idaho. So at that point tomorrow evening, the Magic Valley will be seeing that heavier hitting precipitation. But from now until tomorrow night at about 11 p.m., there's a winter weather advisory in place for the Central Mountains, Boise Mountains, West Central Mountains as well, because roads, bridges, and overpasses could be slick. Again, freezing rain is a possibility, but also because bridges and overpasses don't have the ground insulating that warmth underneath, those roads may be especially slippery and dicey when driving. Heading up a little further north, just north of McCall, closer to Riggins and into the Idaho Panhandle, there's a winter storm warning in place. This is until Saturday afternoon, so a little bit more imminent danger there. Major storm impacts are more likely. Travel could be very difficult in these locations as well, but it could also be impossible. So some of those roads could potentially be blocked off completely depending on how bad the snow gets. In general, we're looking at valleys seeing anywhere from 2 to 6 inches in the mountains, that is. Higher elevation, 6,000 feet and above, could potentially see up to 12 inches, a foot of fresh snow by Saturday morning. Now, first alert weather conditions will stick around through the day tomorrow. Saturday for Treasure Valley and Boise, precipitation chances dial back a little bit, but they bounce up and down for the entire week ahead.
All right, Jack in Meridian appreciates Lieutenant Governor Bedke's honesty on the budget. The legislature screwed up. Let's own it and fix it. Keep my measly rebate and put it towards the balance, he says. Meanwhile, why didn't anyone say anything, I asked. Well, Democrats did, says Steph from Boise. Just because they aren't in the minority doesn't mean they don't know. We need to listen to them. It wasn't just the Democrats that were saying stuff during the last session either. Lieutenant Governor Bedke's 2020 hindsight, hard for me to believe, says Pat in Boise. There'll be a lot of finger pointing in the next legislative session. I hope Governor Little does a better job of listening to the people of Idaho before he does any bill signing. He said that, made that clear. This was brought to him by a veto-proof legislature, and he said it's a representative government, so if that's what the voters want and elect, that's what he's going to sign. So interesting. We, the voting people of Idaho, saw this financial crisis coming, but couldn't get our legislators to listen. So what do we know? Brian, hey, what happened to your finger? I see the Band-Aid, asked Louisa Murray. That's true. We have new cats at home. So I was petting one this morning before I went to work, and they got me. So didn't want to get any blood on my shirt. We'll see you tomorrow.
Continue with us and watch free now on the KTVB Plus app everywhere you stream.